Hello there, sales pros, and welcome back. Well, if you take a look at the video just now, what did you realize? You realize that lead generation is an age-old problem that all sales professionals and businesses we have been facing for years after years after years after years. Why is it most important right now for us to really focus on being able to generate a lot of leads? Simple. The market is becoming more competitive. Every single day, your potential clients are being addressed by multiple companies using multiple platforms. They use the internet, they use TV, they use print, they use all forms of media to get your attention when you're a customer. So sales professionals, a lot of times, what do we end up doing? We end up getting ourselves all mind-boggled because we don't know exactly where to turn, where to look, and what to do. Well, firstly, we need to understand why is lead generation so important. Well, you can sell really well, but if you have no one to sell to, it's not going to help you. So what we need to do is that we need to learn how to create systems and formulas that help us to be able to bring more leads to us. And many times what we do is that we focus on these systems without knowing how to use these systems. So what I want to do right now is that I want to share with you, number one, why is it important for us to understand the difference between competition and differentiation? Number two, what do we do when we want to identify customers? Number three, what are some of the areas that we have to look at when it comes to our product placement and also when it comes to our marketing campaigns? So let's get right into it, and I'm so excited to share with you. Competition versus differentiation. Now, many salespeople, we tend to make the mistake where we get ourselves into competition without realizing that we got ourselves into it. Now, why do I say we do not realize it? Well, very simply, every time a consumer or a customer, they want to buy a product or a service, they can always go to any platform to identify their options. For example, they can go to the internet, they can go to print, they can go to their friends, they can go to the shops, they can go anywhere. And what happens is that when you do not stand out, you find yourself in a situation where somehow or another, you lose out. So not standing out equals losing out. So one of the most important things that we need to do is to always ensure that we do not put ourselves in competition. Because many times clients will always ask themselves this question: why should I buy from you and why should I not buy from you? So when you are put into that kind of a situation where your client decides between you and your competitor and there's no reason for them to choose you, definitely the one at the lower price wins, or the one with the same price but higher quality wins. Somehow or another, someone will be better than you in one area, and because of that, you lose. So when we start to compete with our competitors, what do? We lower price, and therefore our profit margins drop. We add on more value-added services, and what happens is that we start to lower our own profit margins because these value-added services are costs. So when it comes to the idea of competition, always make sure that you're never in competition. What you need to do is to identify a platform to create differentiation for yourself. And when I say to create differentiation from yourself, that means your client needs to understand this. Your client must have this idea in their mind. All right, listen very carefully. To them, they must say this: if I were to buy from another company and not buy from you, I have lost out. Listen carefully. If I were to buy from another company and not buy from you, I have lost out. And that is why they definitely will make you their choice. Now you would say, well, Leroy, what happens if I'm in a situation where my competitor is cheaper? Well, have you ever seen sales happening when somebody buys something that is more expensive? You have. Right? Why? Why did somebody buy something that was more expensive, although the specifications were the same, the quality was the same, everything was the same? There was a reason. There was a very clear reason why that customer chose that company. Well, let's take a look as to the why they should buy from you. But before we go into the why they should buy from you, maybe we need to first understand why they're not buying from you. You see, a lot of times, salespeople, whenever it is that we're positioning ourselves in the market, for us to be able to sell effectively and find the most clients that we can, we tend to move ourselves into the wrong dimension of sales relationships. You see, what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about building the right relationship with the clients. And when I say building the right relationship with your clients, there are actually 4 main levels of relationship. The first one is what we call vendor. Now, what exactly is a vendor? A vendor is somebody that provides a service or a product. And as long as you are a provider of a product or a service, you are considered a vendor. So if you sell insurance, you're a vendor of insurance. If you sell machinery, you're a vendor of machinery. If you sell food, you're a food vendor. Whatever it is that you sell, you are a vendor. Now, when you position yourself as a vendor, you are subjecting yourself to many layers of competition. Now, what do I mean by this? When you have a vendor relationship with your clients, what happens very simply is that clients will do this. They'll say, well, I want to buy something. I've got many choices. So they go up to choice A, give me your quotation. Choice B, give me your quotation. Choice C, give me your quotation. Choice D, give me your quotation. I'll take a look at all of them, and then from there, I will decide what I want. Now, when this happens, you have lost the power to convince your client. You have lost the influence on your client. Why? Because at the end of the day, they are only going to be taking a look at your product or your service from a piece of paper, a quotation or a text or an email. And when that happens, most of the time, well, the lowest price wins, or the one that gives the best value for money wins. And when that happens, you lose the sale. So what do many of us do? We try to move ourselves out from being a vendor, and we try to build relationships, because many people have always said, people buy from their people that they like. Now, so what we do is that we go into personal relationships. And do you realize that sometimes this is what happens? Have you ever been in this situation where someone told you this? Well, I like you. I really like you. And I think that you're professional, and I think that you're great, but I'm buying from somebody else. And that just drives you mad, because you're wondering to yourself, what exactly just happened? He likes me. I spent so much time building the relationship, and he bought from somebody else. Why? Well, it's very simple. A lot of times, clients are like that sometimes, right? Why? Because a lot of times, they fancy a person, they like a person, but somehow or another, there was something about your competitor's product or service that drew them in, that even if they don't like that person that they're buying from, they still buy it. So, what's that secret? Well, before we go into that secret, the next question I'm going to ask you is this. Is there a third level? Absolutely. The third level is to add on more value. So a lot of companies and salespeople, what we like to do is that we like to add a lot more value. We give them free gifts. We do a lot more things for them beyond the product or service. We provide them with a lot more extra little dings and dongs and little extra nice stuff, so that the whole package seems great. But yet again, as I mentioned earlier, this is a cost. And more importantly, besides being a cost, it's a never-ending battle. You do this, your competitor sees it, they go a bit higher. You do a bit higher, they go a bit higher. You do a bit higher, they go a bit higher. And eventually, you've got no idea where it's going. What happens? Customer benefits. You lose revenue. Why? Because of the fact that eventually you will not be able to keep up, because your pockets are slightly limited in being able to add on more and more value services. So the question here is this. What exactly is the secret? How do you build a relationship with your client where even though you are more expensive, possibly your quality is lower, they choose you? Let's find out. All right, let's just jump in right now, okay? So I mentioned 3 things just now. Number 1, vendor. Number 2, building personal relationships. And number 3, adding value-added services. Now, these 3 things, while they are very powerful, right now in today's market, they are quite irrelevant. Now, when I say irrelevant, it does not mean that you should not be doing it. You should do all of these 3 things. But you need to find something that can put you on the higher level when you're engaging your customers. Now, what am I talking about? The word here is strategic partnership. I repeat, strategic partnership. Now, what do I mean by strategic partnership? A strategic partnership is when you build a relationship with a client beyond your friendliness, beyond your product or service being something that they can use. It's not about adding on more value-added services, But a strategic partnership is really about creating that niche, creating that reason, that desire, that need for your customer to say that they want to buy from you. They want to keep on buying from you. They want to engage you for the long term. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, strategic partnership can be broken down into 4 main parts. And for you to be able to create a strategic partnership, you need to ask yourself, which one of these 4 can you use? And in the situation where you can use all 4, that makes it even better. Now, let's talk about the first one, product. Now, many companies out there, they provide a lot of products, right? And different companies provide similar products. But why is it that some companies are very able to maintain market share? Why is it that some salespeople are able to push their products and maintain a lot of clients and bring in a lot of revenue? It's very simple. Well, when it comes to the idea of product, how different is your product from everybody else's? And when we talk about differences, we're talking about a very simple difference, but a stark contrast, a stark difference from everybody else. And if you don't have one of these, you need to go and create it for yourself. Now, let me use some products and some companies as an example, okay? Let's talk about handphones, right? Handphones. Now, at one time, there was a company that named itself after a berry, okay? Just think about it. Named after itself after a berry. And that company was very able to create a lot of customers for themselves, not because they were just a phone. Now, every company out there is a phone, right? They build phones. But this company was so differentiated from every other company because their phones were known for one very simple thing, security. So the differentiation that they had, the partnership that they had with their customers and their consumers was the fact that they were highly secure. These phones were unbreakable. These phones were unhackable. And people who required high levels of security made sure that they bought the phones even though the designs were not really that beautiful. Another company that I want to talk about is, let's say, for example, we're talking about cars, right? And you know, there are so many car manufacturers out there in the world. You've got those from Japan, you've got from Germany, you've got from Italy. You've got cars from everywhere, right? And while all the cars are just cars, there are certain brands that target a certain market. Now, why do I say this? You see, when most of our products is able to be used by most people, your campaign when you approach your clients should never be one where I want to sell to everyone. There's a very nice saying from the past that says this: if you want to sell to everyone, you sell to no one. So it's really important for us to know how to identify and attach ourselves to a certain market and utilize different campaigns for different people in different markets. And that's how we can create for ourselves a very strong strategic partnership. So back to the car. Now, there's one particular car brand out of Sweden, which I'm sure that many of you would know, right? They make great cars, and many people buy their cars because there's something about their product that differentiates themselves from everybody else. And that is all about safety. If you want to hit that car, you will think twice because your car would crash and the other car will not. Because that car was very well known for being extremely safe. So that particular product was very, very attractive to people who wanted safety, especially to those who had families that they ferry their children back to school and all over the place. So they wanted a car that was safe, and that was the first brand that comes to your mind the very moment that you want to buy a safe car. So if we take a look at some of these examples, I want you to think of more examples in your head right now. What products and services out there are so different based on their product, that because of the product in itself, they were very able to create a very large market share for themselves. Think about it, and now look at what yours is. Is there something about your product that no one else has? Or is there something about your product that is so different because it serves a certain function, it serves a certain feature, it does something that everyone else can't? And even if you tell me about Leroy, I don't sell product, I sell services, same thing. Is there something about your service that makes you so different than everybody else? And I'm going to be talking a bit about that right now. So, besides product, the second thing that we're going to be looking at is process. What do I mean by process? You see, One of the most interesting things about being in sales is how you execute your selling process. And you can see that many salespeople out there and many companies out there, there's something that they do that is different, and that is why they're able to draw a lot of more people to them. Now, let's take a look at some more examples of some more companies that I would like to deal with. Well, think about food, for example, right? So many of you inside here who are watching this particular video, you probably might be from the F&B industry. And you have asked yourself many times, how do I create some form of differentiation to bring more customers to myself? Well, let's talk a bit about food, right? When it comes to food, when I say fast food, what's the first brand that comes to your mind? For many people, a brand that was named after a duck called Donald, right? So something Donald's, right? So think about it. Now, that particular fast food brand to me is one of the most amazing brands in the world. The reason is because of the fact that they are the fastest growing and one of the most powerful brands when it comes to fast food. Now, why? Think about it. They are not the only ones in the world who are providing fast food. They are not the only ones in the world who are giving people food. But what makes them so different from everybody else? Everyone is like a vendor. Everybody provides food. Everybody provides healthy food, right? They all do their best to make sure that their food is healthy. But the question here is, why is it that this one company is up here? Really quite simple. It's a process. It's the way that they execute the running of their business. Think about it. If you tell your children, for example, let's go to so-and-so fast food chain, many of them will just go, okay, fine, yeah, whatever. But the moment you ask them to go to this one fast food chain, they start to clap their hands and they get all excited. Why? Simple. You see, when you go to this fast food chain, you are greeted by a clown. You've got bright colors of red and yellow. And then when you go inside there, you've got your own meal, a children's meal. It's called a happy meal. And what do kids want to feel? They want to feel happy. That's marketing 101. If you were to call it an exuberant meal, the child will be like, what? I don't know what you're talking about. But happy meal. Kids want to feel happy. So when they get their meal, they've got bite-sized food, bite-sized drinks, bite-sized everything, and they've got a toy. And even within the restaurant in itself, there is a playground. So parents, when they bring their child to McDonald's, what happens? What happens? Their children eat. And for most parents, you know that one of the most difficult things in the world is to get your child to eat. But when they bring their child to this place, the children eat. And what's even more interesting is that there were many surveys that was done, and they discovered that the phenomenon of why this company is the way it is because many children said this. When my mommy and daddy bring me to this place, it means that they are good parents. When my mommy and daddy bring me to this place, I love them more. That's beautiful strategic partnership. Because now the parents know my child eats, at the same time, I'm a good parent and my children love me more. Think about it. Process. It's not what you sell, but it's also how you sell, how you engage the customer. When you go through the process of selling to them, what are the other benefits that they have? What are the other things that they go through? What do they experience? And many companies have been doing this all these years, but they've not been able to find that one particular secret way of doing it. You need to think about it. Is there a certain process in the way that you engage your customer that is so different from everybody else? Let me give you another example. I once had a real estate agent when I was going to buy my first home, right? And buying my first home at the time, I was so excited because I, saved up enough money and I was wealthy enough to get a nice home. And I remember that there were so many agents, real estate agents, that I could have chosen from. But one of them came to my mind, and immediately I called him up. Why? Process. Well, every single agent does the same job. His process, when he engaged me about a year before that, stuck in my mind. I'll give you an example of what happened, right? So I remember when I was going to view homes, right? And at the time I didn't have the money, but being a visionary and being goal-minded, I went to go and see homes that I could not afford so that it can motivate me, right? And when I went to many different show flats, many agents, whenever I walked in, they told me, can I help you? And I said, no, I'm just taking a look. Many of them just dropped me and walked away. But this one gentleman in this one show flat, he did not. He spent time with me, although he knew that I had not a single dollar to be able to buy this home. And he got to know me. And after a while, he found out that I like certain things, right? And he took my number. Every month after that, I would get an SMS from him, not asking me to buy a home, not asking me about, do I have enough money yet? But he was just giving me ideas of places to go where I can enjoy what I told him that I liked. And that was something very special to me. So the very moment I had enough money to buy my first home, what happened? Who was the first one that came to my mind? Him. So let me ask you the same question. Are you the first one that comes to your client's mind the very moment they think about buying something that you sell? Are you the one that they say, oh, I remember him, I remember her very fondly, and this is the person that I have to go to? Think about it. If you are not, that means there's something wrong with your sales process, in the process of how you engage your customers, that you need to fine-tune so that they will understand and they will know and they will desire to be with you, to work with you, to buy from you. So, process. Think very closely about it. So right now, what I want to do is this. Two things. One, if you're going to be buying insurance, who's the first person that comes to your mind? Why? If you're going to be buying a home, who's the first person that comes to your mind? Why? The same reason why you thought of that person. My question to you here is this. When people think of buying something, a product or a service, are you the first one that they think about? And why? Think about it. Figure it out. Let's move to the third point. Third point. People. Now, when I say people, what I mean by people is not a good-looking person. It's not a celebrity. It is not endorsement. But more importantly, when I say people, I mean the way that the people carry themselves. You see, process is a customer engagement structure. It is something that you do within the business, that you do within your delivery, that is different because of the fact that it is there. But when it comes to people, many people do not realize, many salespeople, we do not realize that likability is extremely important. I'll give you an example here. How many times have you met salespeople that are wanting to sell you something, but just because you felt uncomfortable with them, you did not want to buy, right? Or has there been a situation that you didn't really fancy the product or the service, but because you just love this guy so much, there's something about this person that you just were drawn to this person? You see, going further than this, besides being likable, one of the most powerful techniques that I've realized in differentiation is the people. That means you or your company's staff, or your company's managers, your salespeople, your operational people. So when I talk about people, I'm not talking only about the salespeople. For those of you that provide a product or a service that involves many people, one of the most important things is to be able to differentiate the quality of your people across all boards. Now, when I say across all boards, it means this. Down from the salesperson who sells, the initial contact point who sells, to the next person who makes a phone call to set up the appointment for the delivery, to the next person who handles all of the warranty claims, the customer service questions, down to the person who even sends out emails to the receptionist at the table. Everyone plays a big part in differentiation. Because I'm sure that many of you have realized that sometimes you met a great salesperson, you bought the product, you bought the service, but everyone else that you engaged in the company much later was a pure disappointment. And that left a very bad sour taste in your mouth. So one of the most powerful differentiating techniques is people. Now, let me give you an example. There was a credit card company here in Singapore that I once bought, right? I mean, I'm not a person of credit cards. I've got like one in my whole life. The reason is because I just don't like using credit cards that much. And the funny thing is I've got one that I use for traveling, right? Because I travel so much and I need to have one of these on standby every time I can. And the really interesting thing here is this, is that when a salesperson approached me about getting a credit card, he was very nice. He was very professional. He answered all my questions. Everything was wonderful, right? And I got the card. And there was one day when I was traveling, and what happened very simply was that there's something wrong with the card. I think the stripe or the strip there couldn't work properly. And straight away, I had to call up the credit card company, and the people who picked up the phone, the way they handled the situation, the way they explained to me what I had to do, but most importantly, they helped to keep me calm because I was in a foreign land and I had to pay for something and I couldn't. It was embarrassing. And the way they kept me calm, the way they explained to me step by step, and even after everything was settled, a few days later, they called me back up and they took care of me. Now, all of these things are great, right? These are things that we appreciate. And a lot of companies or salespeople, we've got all these formulas and structures in place that, keep in touch with the customer 7 days after they've made the purchase, right? These are all the touch-based points. You see, all of these are structures, but never forget, it is people who execute these structures. It is people whose voice is on the phone. It is people whose face is front to front with the client. So some companies have been really, really good at putting a lot of resource and time into training their people. So even for you, if you are selling something to a customer, and you know for a fact that your customer has to engage somebody else in your organization at another day because they've got to follow through the whole process, please do ensure that you do your best in some way to ensure that the person who's going to be meeting up with a client, talking to your client, handles themselves beautifully. Because people is one of the most powerful differentiation techniques. Why? Because people like to buy from people. People don't remember you only for your product. People remember you for who you are and who they have been able to engage with during the whole process. So always remember, people. My question to you right now here is this, okay? I want you to think of a time where something went wrong in your entire sales process because your customer complained to you and they said, I bought from you and then when I had to deal with somebody else in your company, it was horrible and I don't want to deal with you anymore. Now, if you have ever encountered that before, you need to go and find out how you can affect it. Somewhere or another, find out. If you can't affect it, take everything into your hands and figure it out. Spend the time to figure it out. Why? Because remember this, sometimes it takes one person to mess up everything. Customers do not see you alone by yourself. Sometimes what you do might be great, but what someone else does might be bad. And that reflects on the whole company that includes you. So I want you to think of how can you affect more of the people engagement with your customers. Think about it right now as we move to point number 4. Quite a journey, hasn't it been? Well, the fourth one that we're going to be talking about would be price. The one word that always gets people very edgy, isn't it? Well, when it comes to price, does it have a big part to play in differentiation? Absolutely. And if you notice the word differentiation, it means to be different. Competition means to compete. So to compete means to be somewhere around the same area so that you can draw some kind of a parallel. But differentiation is when you are different. So when it comes to price, there's actually two areas, and if you can find a way to be able to utilize this strategy, then it helps. Either you're expensive or you're cheap. It's as simple as that. Expensive or cheap. You see, what do I mean by this? Well, if you have seen one of my other videos previously where I talked about how to sell a $50 bottle of water, yeah? If you have seen one of those, that video, I would like you to remember what I talked about, right? If you have not seen it, please make sure that you go and see it, or you subscribe to my channel so that you can never miss out on another video. But getting back to the word price, you see, there are some companies out there where because they're so expensive, that's why everybody buys from them. Now think of it, handbags, right? Watches, right? The quality of some of the watches out there are the same, right? High-end watches, but the same watch with the same bill cost 50, 100% more than another, right? And the funny thing is that beyond just having high prices, you must also remember that there are some companies out there that utilize low prices. Now in Singapore, for example, we've got shops in Singapore that have become pretty popular because everything in the shop is $2. $2, that's it, right? And I'm sure that you have one of these things in your country too. Now, when most people say, but Leroy, then I'm being very low, I'm not respected. But see, at the end of the day, revenue still comes in because everything in that shop is $2. And that is why you are so differentiated, because where are you going? To a $2 shop. Why? It's the $2 shop, right? I'm going to check it out. There are things that I can buy there that's so much cheaper than anywhere else. So price is something that you can think about. You see, why do I say that? If let's say, for example, your price is somewhere around the same area of, let's say, 5 to 10% up or down from your competitors, then it becomes tough. And if let's say it's fixed that way, then you might have to focus on the other three types, right? Product, people, or process. But if you can actually alter your pricing a bit or create a new strategy by utilizing certain days of the month or certain weeks where your price drops drastically, something like that, play with your price such that you are so different, it makes people sit up and take notice. Make sense? So this is something that I want you to think about too. It is the smallest one that we can create the most amount of differentiation, but some companies have really been able to do it very effectively. All right? So if you take a look at what we've talked about over these last 15 to 20 over minutes, I've said that when you want to generate leads, you need to ensure that you are differentiated. You are not engaged in competition, because sameness kills business. I repeat, sameness kills business. If you want to be able to succeed in your business, to be able to succeed in your sales careers, you need to find out how to differentiate from everybody else by using all four or either one of the four. So I repeat, product, process, people, or price. Find out which one of these four you can make the biggest change. Look around at your market and see whether anyone else is doing it. If no one else is doing it, execute it and use it. Use it effectively in all your marketing campaigns. Make sure that people see it so that it serves as a call to action. All right? Now, when it comes to marketing campaigns, we're going to be talking about target marketing. But that is for a whole new other video where I'm going to share with you about how do you target market. That means although your product can be sold to everyone, how do you make it seem to your customer that your product is specific and special for just them? That, as I said, is a whole new video that I will do for you at another time. So if you have not subscribed, subscribe to this channel so that you will never be able to miss out on any of these great videos. And Sales Pros, I will see you soon. Have a great life. Hooah!